All right, some Wednesday night action as always here on Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy. I am your host, Chet, and to my right is my counterpart, Duffy. Duffy, how are we doing this week, man? It's a cold one, I'll tell
Jim,
you that.
pretty cold week is right. But solid week. My birthday is this weekend. I'll be 21
A
years
big
old.
happy birthday to Duffy. That's a
Sorry,
huge milestone.
sorry to try to gas myself up a little bit there, but I'm just excited for the week. So positive vibes this week, and especially after what we witnessed on Monday night. I don't know if my week can go any much
Whew.
down from here.
If
So
you folks tuned into the show last week, Duffy and I made a very controversial pick that, what didn't really seem to turn out that controversial because it seemed like much of the league and even fans around the league were picking the Patriots in this one. And you know what? They were all right on all accounts. Patriots go into Orchard Park in Buffalo, New York to take on Bills Mafia and the Buffalo Bills, who had suffered a few losses here and there throughout their season. You take a look at their last few weeks, which we discussed a few weeks ago. It all started with them pesky Jaguars losing 9-6 in that one, and then blowing out the Jets 45-17, get 5 touchdowns put on by Jonathan Taylor alone, and get blown out by the Colts. They do blow out the Saints on Thanksgiving. However, Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots come into Orchard Park, set the tone early with a 64-yard touchdown to Damian Harris on the ground. And if you look at the stat line at the end of the day, it is shocking. The Patriots
yeah,
defeated the Buffalo Bills by only having Mac Jones throw the ball 3 times, completed for 2 passes for 19 yards, and have a team total of 220 rushing yards to defeat the Bills 14-10. The Patriots have won their 7th straight game of the season and are now atop the AFC conference and the AFC East as the number 1 seed.
yeah.
Duffy, your thoughts from this game, because it
I
was
mean,
a wild one from start to finish.
if you were to show me Mac Jones' stat line before the game, I would have said, wow, elements, but that's elements to the extreme. It was windy, 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts. And Mac Jones threw the ball 3 times and they won the game. This it wouldn't be a stretch to say this might be the greatest coached game Bill Belichick has ever coached. Going to Buffalo Monday night, you lead half a game over your division rival in the playoffs for the AFC East division title. You go in there, you run the ball 46 times on the ground, and never really looked like the game was out of your hands after Damian Harris scored that touchdown. That was just an incredible game. Really was it was a boring game for casuals, I think,
Mm-hmm.
who just expect the aerial attack and a lot of big plays on offense. But that was an old school game, and no other coach I'd rather trust to win an old school game like Bill Belichick, and he really showed out this week. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it, honestly, because 19 passing yards, that's less than me and you's age, Chris. We're
Mm-hmm.
young dudes, so that's a pretty remarkable stat. Come out here with a victory in Buffalo. Defense played phenomenally. Come up with really big stops, but the biggest play of the game was, in my opinion, a play by the Bills. It was Tyler Bass missing that 33-yard field goal to cut to a single point in the fourth
Mm-hmm.
quarter. Patriots got some breaks, got a little bit lucky with the wind, and it was just a great feeling to come out of Buffalo 9-4.
It's definitely a great feeling right there because you're talking about a defense that not only has been in these games week to week playing consistently, but they continue to do it against one of the highest, most potent scoring offenses in the league.
Yeah,
You're talking about Josh Allen, a guy who's an MVP caliber candidate, along with Stephon Diggs in a passing attack that is just really lethal, and even a Bills D that's still solid. They were definitely missing. You could say they were missing Tre'Davious White, but like we said, the Patriots threw the ball 3 times, so
yeah,
really there was no contesting that. And I do think, and what we saw was Bill Belichick really diving way back into the history books and being like, we're going to just run the ball and contain and just hold on to the ball and maintain the clock because that's all we need to do. We know the offense can put up some points, but then the defense, we just trust them because we know they're going to do their job. And that's what the defense did. The Bill is, you can't you can't write off the Bills, though, in this one because – and the main reason is because they had 2 chances to win that game. As Duffy said, they had the field goal, and then they had that final drive. They got really close. However, the defense did commit a sack on Josh Allen that forced them into that 4th and 14 area, where at that point they had to score. They had to get
played by this guy on the screen, Matt Judon.
Yeah.
Getting that sack.
Matt Judon easily has been the best signing for the New England Patriots so far this season. He was a little shaken up in the game at one point, but did come back in. And just the way he's played has just really, really mesmerized me as a fan of football. It's just incredible to see the Patriots get a pass rusher like him and see this defense do so well after trading away the Defensive Player of the Year winner from 2 years ago. It's crazy to see that this team has reached the heights that we never would have thought. And obviously, there's still a few weeks left in the season. There's still a chance for them to at least screw up in 1 or 2 games and come out on the other side, maybe in postseason contention, or maybe not even at all. You never know what could happen. But as of right now, this team's riding high going into the bye week, 7 straight wins. You came back from a 2-4 record to literally set yourself up to be the number 1 seed in the conference. So, I mean, as of right now,
it's crazy to think about.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Patriots haven't lost a game since mid-October.
Yeah, and for me, honestly, I was watching that game at a Christmas party for when I worked at George's. They asked me to come down to their Christmas party at Whalers, so we were watching it at the brewery. And I was like, holy crap. But then when I went back home later after the party ended, I was watching that game. And when it was over, I was just sitting there kind of in awe because I was like, I can't even vocalize it. I'm speechless, dude, because we've said time and time again. We've said time and time again, in Bill we trust. But obviously, at the end of the day, when you look back 2 years ago and the years prior, whenever people would say that, you'd be like, well, obviously in Bill we trust, but we know there's a guy under center who will do the job for us. Now, it's really Belichick moving the pieces, and it really makes you question, was it all just Tom Brady? Because a lot of people like to paint that picture. And that's something that really hasn't been talked about a lot or maybe has been in certain aspects of media or even other discussions, but it's like Bill's really doing everything he can to build a Super Bowl caliber team with a rookie quarterback at its helm. Not saying that it's going to happen, but it's just crazy to see where this team's come from.
It's in the midst of happening. I've been watching the ESPN series Man in the Arena, the one about Tom Brady. I watched episode 1 today, and I've seen a lot of this on Instagram too, where they're comparing this team's Patriots team to the team 20 years ago that won Super Bowl 36 in 2001. Scrappy defense, team that can win games, by not scoring a whole lot of points, and defense just trust the defense. That's a lot of what we're seeing this year too. I mean, look at the defensive stats. Josh Allen threw the ball 30 times, 10 more times than Mac did. Only 15 completions, had a touchdown pass, and probably wouldn't have been in the position to win the game if N'Keal Harry doesn't let that ball bounce off his face mask in the first half.
The craziest fact to me in that stat line is he didn't pass for over 200 yards.
Yeah, over 30 attempts, and he didn't even reach. He had 94, on that second to last drive there. Most of those yards came on the potential game-winning drive. And this Pats defense just, put on the clamps. These guys are incredible. Like even the run game too. We talk a lot about the Bills not having a nice structured run game, and it came back to kind of bite them on Monday night. Only 25 attempts for 89 yards on the night, 39 of those being from Josh Allen. So only really calling 19 run plays, in windy conditions like that. I don't really like the way the Bills approach this game. I don't really think they were ready for the elements for the win, and against the Pats run defense, they tried to run the ball early a lot. Couldn't really get things going. And couldn't really get things going the rest of the game, too. So, Pat's defense was just way better than the Bills' offense on Monday. Something that we didn't see either of the times they met last year. And this is a huge, not only just tangible victory for the Pats, but it's a moral victory, too. I mean, this is a group of guys now who dethroned the AFC East champion last year. They won. They were 13-3 last year. This team, the Buffalo Bills. Patriots now 7 wins in a row. And all people were going to say that Pats didn't play anyone good, but I'm sure most people thought the Pats were going to lose to the Chargers, the Browns, and the Buffalo Bills. So say what you want to say, man. Say all the Harris say what they want to say, but Patriots are legit, and this one really proved it. If they can win the ball, they can win a game throwing the football 3 times. 3. Watch out. Watch out when the weather's good.
Exactly. It really says a lot because this victory really, this is what I said verbatim. I said this game was Bill Belichick spitting in the Bills' face and being like, we can beat you without even throwing the ball. Because that's literally what we watched was Bill basically doing what he needs to do, which is, outsmart the opponent in the simplest way you can think of. He's like, it's windy tonight. Yeah, you're not throwing a lot tonight, Mac. Sorry. It's literally comes down to the execution behind what the coach wants to do in terms of having his team execute his vision. Yeah. Because really, Bill is proving to many teams you don't need to have a high-powered offense to win games in this league. You need a stout defense that's very well organized and just knows what it needs to do for its job, and an offense that knows what it needs to do for its job, but isn't flashy, doesn't overdo things. It literally just is a well-oiled machine, and that's something that we see lacking from many teams in the NFL today is a well-oiled machine. Too many times we've seen good teams like the Packers. We will probably see it with the Cardinals this year. Teams like this, even the Rams too, teams like this, we see them do a lot of great things in the regular season, but when it all comes down to brass tacks in that postseason, when the game matters most and everything's on the line, these teams just can't do it because there's something up. They either commit a penalty, they turn over the ball, or they just destroy the game themselves because we've seen it time and time again. And the Patriots are proving you don't need to have a superstar quarterback like Tom Brady to win these games.
I don't know if you saw this too, Chet. Bill Belichick. You can't really see it, but I tried removing myself for a minute. But he was wearing a Navy midshipman mask before the game. Trying to warn us all that he was running the ball the whole game, which is funny. He just went out there and did that old school football, but well-oiled machine. Best way to put it. A lot of guys in this roster can do a whole lot of things. And they play together as a team, and that's the Patriot way. It has been for the better part of 2 decades, really in my entire life. And, Bill Belichick at the helm. I'm not worried about this team moving forward.
Yeah, so now with this win, the Patriots go on to being 9-4 on the season. They are now 6-0 on the road, and the Bills fall to 7-6. They drop to the 7th seed in 7-5. They drop to the 7th seed in the AFC playoff picture now officially. And really the standings have been turned upside down in both conferences this year. Most teams that people thought would be doing well aren't doing well as of this moment. So there's a lot to question here. But as for the Patriots, they're riding high. They go into the bye week. And I think they've deserved some time off from the game for a bit, at least a few days. And I know Bill's going to give it to him because that's 7 straight wins you just had. And sure, they're going to stay focused because he'll always keep them on task. But I think the word of the day for this team is going to be rest.
Dude, it's crazy. Week 14 buys, a lot of rest is deserved. 13 games in a row is a lot. Right in the latest bye we've seen the NFL in a long time with this new 18-week schedule. So Patriots rest up. Take it easy. You got the Colts in a couple weeks, a really good football team who's on the rise up. So, stay prepared and get some rest.
Yeah, and I mean, rest is going to be key for this team because they've got some pretty tough divisional matchups coming up as well as outside conference matchups. 2 of these games are pretty winnable. I mean, all of them should be pretty winnable, but after week 14, you have the Colts in Lucas Oil Stadium. However, I did have this discussion yesterday, and people will always amp up the Colts and the Patriots, and then like we've seen it with Peyton Manning, we've seen it with Andrew Luck. I mean, both of those Colts teams are really good teams with those quarterbacks there, and each time Bill Belichick has just made them look silly. And this time, Carson Wentz being there is obviously a big headline, but the biggest headline is seeing the production that Jonathan Taylor has put up in these last few weeks of the midseason. This is going to be something that we will talk about more next week. But I think Bill is going to draw something up that's going to allow the Patriots to really get an advantage over this team because
hey, if anyone can stop Jonathan Taylor, it's probably Bill Belichick.
yeah,
You know,
so that's going to be his first piece of attack is that. But obviously, we'll get to that as the weeks go. Next week we'll get to
as
it
we get
next
closer
week.
to the game next week. Good way to
Yeah.
put it. It's a
Too
Saturday
close.
night game. It's a Saturday night game, by the way, too. We got flexed the Saturday night slot. Pretty prime time for the Pats. These boys are just built different, man. They're just built different.
And then after that, you've got another game against Buffalo. This time, the rematch will be in Gillette Stadium. I'm sure the fans are going to be ready for that one. And then to finish off the season, a home game against the Jaguars to wrap it up after the day after New Year's. And then they'll head to Miami to play the Miami Dolphins for a quick late game. And hopefully by then, they'll have secured the number 1 seed in the AFC, and we won't have to worry about sending our starters out.
We might have someone to play for in that game. I'm a little bit nervous, going to Miami in the season because that's always been a tough place for the Pats to play.
And especially with this team
the biggest
surging.
Yeah, I mean, that Dolphins team, 6 wins in a row or 5 wins in a row. No team's ever made the playoffs starting 1-7. They've won 5 games in a row against good teams, making teams look stupid out here like the Ravens, like the New York Giants. Just good defense from the Dolphins these last few weeks. And like you said, Chet, they are rising a lot.
Yeah. And like Duffy said, no team in NFL history has ever made the postseason when starting at 1-7. Could the Dolphins be the first team to do it this year? And so that's something we're going to keep an eye on as a future headline to talk about. We'll probably get to them next week. Their matchup this week is, I believe, it is against, let me see. I'm looking for it right now. Miami. Oh, they're on a bye this week.
But the Buffalo Bills have the Tampa Bay Bucks this week in Tampa.
Yeah.
So another chance for the Patriots to make that lead in the AFC East a little bit more comfy. And for the Dolphins to try to creep up on the Bills. If Dolphins, win their next game if the Bills lose to the Bucks, they could only be 1 game behind.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to unpack in the AFC East this last month of the season.
And we'll get more on some things to unpack about the AFC. But something to talk about now is this week's matchup, Thursday Night Football. Tomorrow night will be in Minnesota as the Minnesota Vikings will host the Pittsburgh Steelers, who did just come up with a big upset against the Baltimore Ravens last week at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. 20-19, your final score over the Baltimore Ravens. And that's a team that has struggled these past couple of weeks to put up points, and these woes continue. And this is a Vikings team that's desperate for a win to get back into the postseason picture, because after 2 straight losses to some teams they should have beaten, they probably should have beaten San Francisco, and they most definitely should have beaten Detroit last week. Detroit gets its first win of the year against Minnesota, and honestly, I probably could have told you that might have happened because
Minnesota, that was definitely a trap line. It was Vikings -7.
And the Vikings, time and time again, have shot themselves in the foot with stupid losses such as this. Yeah. So, I
saw a tweet. It was like, no Vikings fan is surprised by this.
Vikings favored in this one -3 at home, and obviously has been reduced more so because of that loss to the Lions. But right now, Pittsburgh sitting with a winning record, 6-5-1. They are 2-3 on the road, going up against a 3-2 home team sitting at 5-7. Duffy, this one's a really tough game for me to swallow on because I really don't like either one of these teams coming into this matchup.
It's a tough game to pick, but coming off a big win against the Ravens, I like Pittsburgh low key. On Wednesday night, I think they have a better defense. Obviously, the better defense. offense starting to click a little bit. 17 fourth quarter points from the Steelers in that victory on Sunday afternoon. And against the Vikings team on a short week, just lost to the Detroit Lions. They're probably pissed off. They're probably really upset right now. And this is a really tough game. Line right now is Vikings -3.5. I honestly like the Steelers points right there. I think the Steelers could definitely win this game outright on a Thursday night. But this game's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be a little bit low scoring. Dalvin Cook probably not playing again. Alexander Madison gonna get the bulk of the carries, but that Steelers run defense, despite a couple of games, like the Austin Eckler game, they've been pretty good this season. So, you know what, Chet? Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, sitting at 7-5-1. I believe I messed it up, and they're 6-5-1.
Yeah, they're 6-5-1 right now.
Fix that real quick. Sorry. They're going to get their 7th win of the season because, as we know, every year, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're always right in the thick of that playoff race. And I think this year it's going to continue. This is a must-win game. So this is a Vikings team. It's also a must-win game for them as the NFC playoff picture is absolutely wide open. But, dude, I'll take Pittsburgh on the road. I think they're a better coach team with Mike Tomlin. And, I trust them more off short weeks than the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, Tim, I'm going to take the Steelers as well in this game because, like you said, point blank, this Steelers defense is really good against the run. You're without one of the top running backs in this league. Alexander Mattison is definitely a good running back, but it's going to be a tall task to ask him to really carry a load where he's going to have to be a star in this one. I mean, we'll see because the Steelers right now are going to be without Joe Hayden in the secondary, so that's going to be something they're going to be missing back there. They still have a pretty solid defense throughout, so Kirk's going to have to look more towards the pass for the most part, and this season we've seen him be able to be successful with that. 25 touchdowns and 3 interceptions with over 3,000 passing yards. Still one of the best quarterbacks in the league as of right now, I'd say stat-wise.
Having a baller season, but
he's balling out. But the thing is,
you got to beat the Lions, man.
Yeah, you gotta.
Really.
And so, I can see Najee Harris having a big game in this one, and I just think Kirk Cousins is going to be under duress a lot because right now Steelers are ranked first in the league total in sacks. Their team has 37 sacks, leading the league. Vikings are 1 sack behind them, though. They also get a lot of pressure on their quarterback. However, you're talking about a Minnesota Vikings defense that is ranked 30th in the league. Yeah. So,
30th.
I like Pittsburgh in this one.
It's going better about taking Pittsburgh, too.
I'm going to take Pittsburgh because I trust their defense more. But what I don't trust right now is that offense. They need to basically set the tone early with a good offensive attack, really having Ben mix it up, throwing passes to Deontay Johnson, spread the ball around a little, and then get Najee Harris involved too, because he's your best player on the field right now, and he's someone you got to get into the game plan right away. If I had to predict the final score for the end of this one, I'm going to take the Steelers 27-24.
I think it's going to be somewhere around the lines of Steelers 17, Vikings 13. Low-scoring game. I think the Steelers are going to hold on the ball for a lot of it. When they get out, we're going to get some long drives. Like you said, Chet, set the tone early. It's a team that if they didn't tune up at the end of last week, they would have lost the game. They scored 3 points in the first 3 quarters. So against the LA Chargers, too, on Sunday night the other week, where they scored, I think, 27 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, they had 10 points the first 3 quarters. So this is a Pittsburgh team that started off slow a lot of these games. And against, like you said, Chet, the 30th ranked defense in the league in prime time on Thursday night. I think this is a time for Big Ben to really show that, hey, I could keep playing football after this season, because rumors circulating this could be his last season in Pittsburgh. And, maybe he'll want a job next year somewhere else. And against a Vikings team, a team that's been depleted as of late, I think this is a good chance for him to do that. I think Pittsburgh gets the sneaky upset victory in an AFC North versus NFC North showdown.
It's going to be a tough game because, I mean, even with Minnesota, Mike Zimmer's on the hot seat right now. This could be his final season with the Minnesota Vikings. So for him,
if they miss the playoffs, it's got to be.
Yeah.
He's out.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 years coaching that team, and how many playoff wins they got? One. The Minneapolis Miracles. That's the only
Yeah.
playoff game they've won. Oh, two. They beat the Saints twice.
Yeah. That's right. They beat
Yeah.
them 2 years ago with Kirk going off, and then lost in the divisional round the next year
That's one of the most forgettable
to the
games.
Niners, right? They lost to the
San
Niners.
Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah. So
San Francisco messed them up too that game.
So that concludes our preview of Thursday Night Football. We're going to move into a special segment where we're going to talk about some NFL inconsistencies. That's the name of today's segment. And we're going to each pick a team from the AFC and the NFC and talk about what the hell's wrong with them, because there's a lot of problems with certain teams that should be doing a lot better than they already are. Duffy, I give you the honorary as I usually do.
First.
Yeah, the right to go first.
All right, so let's start with the AFC right here. It's a team that's been getting cold, started really hot, and their record really doesn't show how inconsistent they are. It's the Tennessee Titans, and it's kind of an easy pick because they were the number one seed about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago actually, but they've lost their last two games. They've scored 13 points in each of their last two games against the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans at home. And they just lost games they shouldn't have been losing. I mean, they almost lost against the Saints the week before that, 23-21. They blew the lead. They blew me the spread. I had it at -3. They were up 8 and let Trevor Siemian walk down the field and score a touchdown to try to tie the game. That's besides the point. This Titans team, they've had really impressive wins against Seattle on the road in overtime, against the Buffalo Bills on Monday night, against the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-3. I mean, this team has had impressive wins. They're a very talented roster. So they're cold. A lot of it is due to injuries to Julio Jones, to A.J. Brown, who are both out at least in a couple of weeks, and Derrick Henry, whose return is to be determined. But Ryan Tannehill's got to step up. And Ryan Tannehill, he's a quarterback right now. I believe he has just as many interceptions as touchdowns this season. Let me just double check that. 14 touchdowns, 13 interceptions on season, and only 2,700 yards through the air with 5 games left in the year. I mean, it's not going to cut it. And for a team that's 8-4, I believe, they're lucky to be 8-4 with the way they've been playing recently. We got to start to pick things up without Derrick Henry. And we've seen flashes of the run game be great against the Patriots. They ran for over 300 yards. It was just about somewhere around there. I think it was 270. But this team's got to step it up because the Colts, they're creeping up in the AFC South. It's getting a lot closer than it should be. Titans just got to, win these last few games and secure themselves another home playoff game for this playoff run. But they got some tough games ahead of them.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, with Tennessee, it's really showing that without these key stars to this team, their roster just seems very flat. They come out flat, and they just don't play well in these games. They should actually be competitive, especially if they're deemed to be such a good team. So, like you said, Tim, there's a lot that this team needs to work on. And I mean, a pick-me-up game against Jacksonville should help. However, you're talking about a division rivalry here. So this could very well be a trap game. We've seen the Jaguars do it several times this season against teams. So, I mean, for the Titans, the tone starts right away. You really need to start setting yourself up in a good position to basically win the South because the Colts are right behind you. And then your schedule doesn't get easier. You've got games against the Steelers next in Pittsburgh. Then you come home to play the Niners. You play Miami at home. And then you go to play the Texans, who already beat you this season. So right now the schedule is tougher than it should be for the Titans. So basically what this team needs to do is just get by with these wins and hold on long enough for these very talented players to come back so they can actually be very well prepared for the postseason.
It's just looking like a team right now that started 8-2, and they have the potential to finish, 10-7 or something like that. So some easy games on their schedule, some must wins, if you will. Probably a pick-me-up game against the Jaguars this Sunday. But Steelers, 49ers, the Dolphins, and the Texans, like you said, Che, already beat them. 4 tough games. And the Texans shouldn't be a tough game, but, they are now. And it depends how healthy they are, too, at the time being. But just there's kind of getting freezing right now. And got to warm up a little bit if they want to be a legit threat in the AFC.
And speaking of
They
another
still have a
legitimate,
shot. They still have a shot at the number one seed, by the way.
yeah,
Keep in mind.
absolutely. They 100% do. So they have to play like every game matters for that number one seed because
Absolutely.
that's what great teams do. And speaking of a team that should be doing better than it has been in recent weeks is without a doubt the Buffalo Bills in the AFC. This team has just had too many hiccups. You're talking about in the beginning of the season, they lose in a close one at home to Pittsburgh, 23-16, a solid game, but then after that, they start blowing out teams. You see a 35-0 win over Miami, 43-21 win over Washington, 40-0 over Houston, and then a 38-20 win over the Chiefs. But then the trend starts. I did say it started with the Jags, but it started earlier. It started with the Tennessee Titans losing in that close one, 34-31. And you flip with these wins and losses. They did it consistently throughout the year. But basically, what we've talked about week to week is the problem with this Buffalo Bills team is there is no definitive run game whatsoever. We've seen it trickle downhill ever since Devin Singletary came into the league. Even when Zach Moss came in last year, there were bright moments of seeing him kind of have these sparks. And even this season, he had one or two games where he did pretty good. But now you're talking about a team that's starting to rely on Matt Breida, who has been with the Niners and the Dolphins before this and was injured going into this game, going into recent weeks. They just rely too much on Josh Allen to run the game because they're throwing a lot. Josh Allen, when he doesn't have options open, will just take the ball himself. You don't have an all-star cornerback anymore. Tre'Davious White done for the year with that ACL tear a couple weeks ago. And the defense, it's solid, but it's just not winning them games because Josh Allen's making mistakes and just causing, mayhem for this team. So for me right now, this team really needs to figure itself out because their schedule's a little more favorable than we saw for the Titans. But they do have a tough game next week against Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers are going to give them everything they got, especially since it's in Tampa. A loss here could really set them up in an interesting situation because they'd sit at 7-6. And if Miami wins this week, well, they won't because they're on a bye. But
if they lose, and they're only one game ahead of the Dolphins,
Yeah. And then after that game, you've got the Panthers at home in Buffalo, which is a winnable game. But then you go to New England and play the Patriots again, and then play the Falcons and the Jets to finish the season. So for the Bills, they've got a better shot at getting back where they need to be than Tennessee. But you're still going to have a lot of ground to carry because not only that, these teams that they're going to be facing have been pesky. The Jets have been pesky in games this year. The Falcons have been pesky in games this year. And I mean, even the Panthers have had times. I mean, when they were 4-0 in the beginning of the year, they were pesky. They put up a fight. They're still a good team even without Christian McCaffrey. However, for Buffalo, they need to start figuring out some type of run scheme because without the run game and you're just relying on Josh Allen to throw the ball, you may make the playoffs, but you're not making it to the Super Bowl.
I think the biggest thing with the Bills is also, they've just lost a lot of games that they should be winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like against Jacksonville, against New England, and that's good. It's a good argument to say they should have beat New England the other night. Going to the red zone twice in the fourth quarter against the Indianapolis Colts, got blown out. Your goal line stand away from beating the Tennessee Titans too. I mean, this is a team that's lost a lot of close games. And unlike last year, they haven't been able to close out a lot of these games. So 5 losses are 2 more than the Bills had all last season. This is a team that's cold right now. I would agree with you on that, Chet. But they're probably the team on this list, on this series of lists with the most potential to heat up at any time.
Yeah,
they have the best. They have still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, in Josh Allen, still one of the favorites for the MVP. He had a great stretch previous month before these last couple of weeks. And, but 7-5, it's not the best spot you want to be in, especially in this tightly contested AFC this year, where about 13 teams are still in it right now.
Yeah. And like we said, don't count out the Bills. They've hit an inconsistent cold streak, which Teams will. It's just bound to happen. Teams hit a cold streak every so often. You can't always be the best team and never lose a freaking game because that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So don't count this team out. They still have a lot of potential. They could even come into New England and steamroll us, or even just
It won't
steamroll
happen.
their. What's that?
It's not going to happen.
Probably won't because we're better. So that's our take on the AFC. Now in the AFC,
The NFC.
for the NFC, for me, I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams in terms of inconsistency, and I'm sure no one will shoot me down for it because, I mean, when you look at the schedule, you look until they get to the Tennessee Titans game, and let me just count because I'm terrible with this. So they were 7-1 going into that game against Tennessee. They lose the game 28-16. But then they play the San Francisco 49ers, get blown out 31-10, and then lose in Green Bay 36-28. They do win against Jacksonville this week, 37-7, putting them 8-4. But honestly, the Titans game and the Niners game to me, very winnable situations. Not saying that, well, situations as in the situation they got themselves in, not good. Absolutely not good. But you're talking about a team that has proven to me that this team does not play well if Matt Stafford does not play well. Matt Stafford needs to be ready every single freaking game because this defense has proven if Matt Stafford falls asleep or like just is throwing pick sixes, they're not going to be able to stop much. And it's not helping that's like, honestly, the defense can't do anything about Matt Stafford throwing a pick six. That's on him. But what it's going to come down to with this team is kind of just opening this game up a little bit more and kind of understanding that they can't have, Matt Stafford's not going to play well every single week. You can't expect that of him. But right now, in the path they're going, if they continue to do so,
he's just still a lion, man. He's Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
He's been the most overrated quarterback in the league in the last year, in my opinion. And I think it's all of it's social media's fault. I'll get that in a sec when you're done with your point, Chet. Sorry.
Yeah, and then to look at the schedule for where they end off, you have a game after this Jags game that they just won. They're going to Arizona to play the 10-2 Cardinals, who they could potentially beat. But now you're talking about Kyler Murray, who literally just put up a huge stat line last weekend, had 4 total touchdowns on the day. And then you have the Seattle Seahawks, which is a divisional matchup. Then you've got the Vikings, who are still pretty competitive, the Baltimore Ravens, and then the Niners again. This is not a very favorable matchup. It's probably one of the toughest schedules we've seen so far out of all of these teams.
That is a tough stretch of games right there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for them, the NFC playoff picture is definitely more what's the word I'm looking for right now. It's definitely more favorable to under 500 teams right now. They're sitting pretty in the wild card picture at 8-4, but you're talking about games against the Baltimore Ravens on the road. It's going to be really tough. The Arizona Cardinals, a team that steamrolled them last time they played in Los Angeles. Seattle Seahawks, who just had a really inspiring win on Sunday too, and 49ers again in Week 18. I mean, that is a tough stretch of games, and for the Rams, I do think they're a little fraudulent. Because those 3 games, that 3-game losing streak they had, despite the final scores, they weren't in any of those games the entire time against the 49ers, Packers, or the Tennessee Titans. They weren't in any of those games.
But these are games that they should have been competitive in.
Yeah, and they were favored in all 3 of them. They were favored by, I think, 7 that first game. Or not, I think it was like 3. They were favored by 8 against the Titans. They were favored by like 3.5 against the Niners on the road, and they were favored against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. I don't know why to this day would Matt Stafford in Green Bay be the favorite. I don't understand.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
This team just they got to close out games, and Matt Stafford, he's got to close games, and he's really going to come up big in these pressure moments against good teams. And he's a quarterback who the stat we've seen the last few years or so is his record against teams with winning records, and it's horrendous. It's somewhere in the single digits to like 50 or 60 something. It's just not good. I mean, he just doesn't really step up like he needs to in those moments. I mean, he just looked trash against Green Bay the entire game, looked trash against Tennessee. and he looks against the shitty teams like Houston and Jacksonville and Detroit. I mean, this team just isn't legit in my opinion.
And it could very well.
I've kind of talked myself into that
Yeah.
statement right there, but I mean, they just haven't been good against good competition.
And you kind of talk about it.
Except for the Bucks.
If these teams that are in the NFC really step it up and really cause a lot of mayhem for these Rams, the Rams, I mean, you could see Sean McVay potentially being on the hot seat by the end of the year, because you're talking about an experiment where this franchise traded a lot of its future into a lot of players to build a Super Bowl caliber roster that doesn't make it each year. There's a lot of question marks around that.
Terrible take.
Not to say it's all. Well, dude, you got to think about it, because honestly,
Sean McVay is not getting fired. That organization.
I'm not saying he's fired, but a lot of people are going to start scratching their heads and being like, "What the heck is going on here?" Because the front office is doing everything it can to supply Sean McVay with what it needs, but it's not producing, and they're losing a lot of future talent as a result. You're talking about
it's not
4 straight years we haven't seen the Rams.
Too, you know, he's an aggressive guy. I mean, he kind of plays. The Rams organization is kind of playing this rebuild like it's Madden. Getting all these big guys, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, whoever you want to say. But I mean, this if I even hear a rumor about Sean McVay being on the hot seat, I'll be surprised after the season. I mean, this is a guy, still in his late 30s, mid to late 30s, and he brought you to a Super Bowl his second year as a 34-year-old. He's pretty much turned your entire franchise around. Like, Chet, the entire time we were growing up, the St. Louis Rams were dog shit.
I remember, trust me.
Terrible. So, can't agree with that one, Chet. Sean McVay's job, I think he's secure the next 5 years at least, unless they just keep losing and losing. And
yeah.
Think about it, especially now, dude, with the Lions, he just shows you how good he made Jared Goff look.
Yeah.
Jared Goff is ass. he's horrible.
But he's also on an ass team, so you can't really say that.
I was still backing. I mean, Stafford was okay on the Lions. I mean, it's true he's Matt Stafford, but Jared Goff, I mean, he's lost his first 10 starts, he couldn't win a game in 11 starts until Sunday. But I was backing.
Yes, but I mean, look who he has to throw to.
I was backing Goff for years, saying he was good. Goes to Detroit and it's dog shit, dude. That they played an entire 5 quarters against the Pittsburgh Steelers in that overtime tie. He threw for like 105 yards, bro. Like something like that. I mean,
Sean McVay, got no one to throw to. Look at his receivers. No one.
His receivers
tell me,
suck, but it's like, dude, he's still.
I'm telling you, if Matt Stafford was there this year,
they're still NFL receivers. Like, we're gonna sit here and say they're dog shit. They're not elite receivers.
But either way, the Rams, they're not in a good position right now, and they need to find something chemistry-wise to just make this team work as a collective, because when they do, they win games. Bottom line. So
they're one of the best teams in the league.
So, Tim, let us hear your pick.
I had one. I forgot that I had one because you were talking about the fucking Rams.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. Freezing cold, the state itself. I mean, this team is just an embarrassment, dude, and they're like this every year, to be quite frank. They just lose games they should win. Kind of like what I said about the Bills earlier. They just do this every year because every season, the last 5 years or so, they've come in the league. They've come in the season with one of the most potent offenses on paper in the league. And we've seen flashes of it against the Packers, who they beat somehow, against the Ravens, who they took to overtime and lost against the Chargers, who they beat on the road, and against the Arizona Cardinals, who they should have beat back in week 2.
Yep. Even Cincinnati.
Even Cincy in week 1. But those are just examples of games that they just can't close out, But just to say, the Lions, man, this is a team that's 5-6 going against the Detroit Lions on Sunday. You have a chance to firmly cement yourself into that 6th seed for at least the rest of the week, and they blow it. Just absolutely blew it. I think they're sitting at the 7th seed right now, or Eagles are sitting the 7th seed right now in the NFC.
Yeah.
And you just go in there and just lose. I mean, this is an NFC that is right now on track to have a wild card team that's under 500. And you go into Detroit and do that, it's just just sickening. I mean, this is a team that just consistently finds different ways to lose.
Yeah.
And
it's in very winnable situations
yeah,
too.
it's just like, come on, like get it together, because this is a team that should be making the playoffs year in and year out. Kirk Cousins, 25 touchdowns, 3 picks on the season entering Sunday, I think, or maybe
He's going to have at least 4,000 passing yards.
I mean, yeah, he's having the best year of his career right now. And it's looking like it could be, just another season down the drain for Minnesota fans. It's just tomorrow's game against the Steelers is a must win. I don't think they're going to win it because I don't trust them. But if they want any chance to just get back in this picture, they need to win tomorrow night. They absolutely have to.
They're going to be without Adam Thielen tomorrow too, as well.
Yeah, he's out too. Now again, a Washington team at 6-6, Philly team at 6-7. That's won a good amount of games the last few weeks.
And realistically, that means their main target is going to be Justin Jefferson, who has been on fire these last few weeks.
200 yards on Sunday when Thielen got hurt. It was crazy.
Yeah,
and they still couldn't win. It was the funniest part.
So, yeah, my take on this team, like you said, is just utter disappointment. Like, if I were a Vikings fan, honestly, these past few years, or even these past few decades, it's like, man, like, come on. Something's got to give at some point. Something's got to work out. This team's got to come together collectively and figure out the way to just win a game, win a few games. But no, like you said, Tim. Like you said, Duffy, we've seen it from the beginning of the season, and we've seen it go through. They've won games that they've needed to win. They've won tight ones, just like against Green Bay. But that just once again just shows you how inconsistent that you're asking for that success to be. You can't have that where everyone's jumping all over the place one day, being like, hooray, we beat this team, and then the next week lose to the Detroit Lions. Like, you can't have that. You literally defeated the second seed in the NFC. Like, come on. In that moment, you should literally be looking ahead. But I think a big problem is this team gets too distracted, has too much problems going on. And Mike Zimmer, honestly, he's kind of the head of it.
He's got to get a realtor soon. He's going to sell his house at the end of the year. Sucks, but whatever.
Because I like Mike Zimmer. I really do. But at the same time, if he can't keep control of the roster and keep this team in a position to win games, he's not going to have a job. And I don't think he's going to.
You lost to Cooper Rush at home on Sunday Night Football, bud. Cooper Rush. That was their most embarrassing loss. Forget Sunday in Detroit. Divisional game happens. They had Cooper Rush starting at quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, and they let him march down the field on their throat and win the game. Disgusting. I would probably puke every Sunday if I was a Vikings fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shame.
It's sad.
They got to pick things up because they are still in it. The pieces are still there. And, schedule is not terrible. I mean, let me see. Viking schedule. I just had it up here, but I lost it. Schedule's not terrible. The Steelers tomorrow night, which is a winnable game. Bears on the road. Rams.
Even though we already picked them to lose.
Yeah, we already picked them to lose. But they have the Bears. They have the Bears twice. They could win both of those. They have the Packers on Sunday night, Week 17, and the Rams. So they just if they could churn out 4 of these last 5 games, I think they could snag that 6 or 7 seed. But it's looking pretty tough, and that was a big, fat, stinky loss they took on Sunday.
And this is a Vikings team that's currently ranked 6th in the league in terms of total offense. But then in terms of total defense, you look at them ranked 30th in the league in total defensive yards allowed. So it's basically just relying on the offense and that pass rush, because the pass rush literally has been what's keeping them in these games, is that pressure, that pocket pressure on the quarterback. So something's got to work out for this team. Otherwise, say goodbye to them. They will not be in the postseason this year, guaranteed.
Yeah, same story every year. Their offense is the only thing worth watching. The last 2 years, at least.
Mm-hmm. All right,
keep it together.
So that concludes our inconsistencies here in the NFL. Now to move on to everyone's favorite segment, locks and upsets. And I definitely think going forward, dude, we got to see if we got to get some fans in here that are going to give some picks,
Why? Because you need
because
help. So because you need
I
someone
want
to
to. No, I mean, I kind of want to just like post it out there and be like, hey, we'll say it right now on the show. Give us your pick for next week's game in week 15, or even let us know for this week. Drop it in the comments or even DM one of us and let us know what you think. And hey, maybe we'll put your pick on the show next week. That's
Oh yeah.
something to think about right there. So just DM us or post in the comments right below. Pick which team you think's going to win this week. Lock an upset. Give us your pick. So
Absolutely.
So starting out with my pick for this week, I'm going with the Chargers over the Giants. Right now, I did get 2 wins in a row, but I need
Want
another
some
pick
Mickey
me up
shit? Of
because you also got 2 wins last week. I need to stay
course
hot.
I did. Of
I,
course
I
I did.
still need to stay hot on that track because you look at what the Chargers have done in recent weeks. They have just been all over the place, man. I mean, I shake my head every time I see them give up and just lose in games that they need to win, that they must win and should win. That's another team just like the Vikings. They really should be alive in these games. But a huge win over Cincinnati last week. They go into Cincy, like I said. Herbert throws for over 300 yards, 3 touchdown passes, and Austin Eckler having himself a day. Keenan Allen getting 2 touchdowns on the day as well. Jalen Guyton getting 4 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. Mike Williams, 5 catches for 110 yards. They managed to hold. Joe Burrow did throw for over 300 yards. They managed to blow out Cincinnati 41-22 there. I think coming home, it's going to be a cakewalk for these boys. I mean, they're no stranger. They're no stranger to a team as bad as the New York Giants. This could easily be a trap game because right now the spread has them at -10, which in and of itself is crazy. But the
I mean,
Giants
it's against
roster,
Mike Glennon again, probably. So
yeah, this Giants
not terrible.
roster too depleted. You're talking Saquon Barkley came back last week, but he's going to still probably be taking baby steps this week. And Kenny Galladay's still not really all there, and that receiving game is just absolutely atrocious. The Chargers defense should have no problem here, and Justin Herbert should have no problem against the Giants team that's easily one of the worst in the league. I
Yeah.
could see them covering the spread and some in this one. I'm going to say a final score in this one of 38 to 12. Your final.
Good pick. Like it, Mickey Mouse. I'll take it. I mean, there's more. It's one of those rare weeks where there's a lot more upset potential than lock potential
Yeah.
in these lines. So I'm gonna pick something Mickey also
I
myself.
got a spicy one for an
Me
upset.
too. Me too, low key. But I got this week's lock. I'm gonna take kind of an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
See the Tennessee Titans at home over the Jaguars. I mean, Titans, a couple of terrible games in a row. -9 right now is the spread. I think they're going to cover that with some ease. And, I was reading some stuff today. Is it time to consider Trevor Lawrence a potential bust or not dismiss it completely, that he's going down that trajectory? We'll see Sunday. I mean, it's going to be another test of that. And that is my, self-admitted Mickey Mouse pick of the week. Probably the whole year, honestly. Just anytime picking against the Jaguars is just Mickey, and you got burnt by it picking the Bills against them, so you deserve the shit out of that.
Yeah, screw you. But yeah, no, I mean, I have nothing. I mean, I really have nothing to add here. The Titans should easily walk all over them. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure if they can put 200 yards of rushing up against the New England Patriots with Donta Foreman and freaking Damian Hilliard, I'm sure they'll do the same thing against the Jaguars and some.
right.
I see them covering the spread ridiculously.
Me too, man.
So now for the upsets. Jets upset this week. It's a good one. And I mean, if you look at, as Duffy said, there's a lot of potentials for upset this week. And I think this could be one of them. I'm going to take Cincinnati at home over the San Francisco 49ers. Niners favored by -1.5 in this one, and they've been good. 4-2 on the road this season. After yesterday's game or Sunday's game, Bengals fall to 3-3 at home, 7-5. But this is a team that's got a lot of upside, and so do the Niners. But for me in this one, The Bengals are going to be pissed off, dude. Bottom line,
Yeah.
they should have stepped up a little bit more against LA. They're
Came
not
all the
going
way
to
back for nothing, too. It
they're
was hilarious.
they're not going to let this slip away from them. This is one of the first times in a very long time we've seen the Bengals do well since Andy Dalton was there in his prime. And I
Yeah.
think we're going to see them put themselves in a much better position to really go for an AFC North title and compete with the Baltimore Ravens, who did just lose in an embarrassing loss to Pittsburgh, in which they should have just sent the damn game to overtime. Like, come on, going for two.
Yeah.
Going for two against Mike Tomlin. Give me a break, man. Like, you're really just asking for it at that point.
The play was there, though. I mean, Andrews was wide open. Lamar just missed the throw, you know?
Yeah. So for me, it's going to be a close one because Jimmy Garoppolo has still been pretty solid despite only throwing for 15 touchdown passes this year. You still see Eli Mitchell having himself a solid year. Deebo Samuel already on 56 catches. He already has over 1,000 receiving yards on the year. Jamal Chase, close to that 1,000-yard mark. And Joe Mixon having himself a career year he's going to break the 1,000-yard mark this week in rushing and has 12 rushing touchdowns on the year. So they're going to rely heavily on Mixon to produce well. Joe Burrow's going to game manage as best he can. Needs to limit his interceptions, though. He has 14 on the year so far. That's got to be canceled out, especially in this one. I think we're going to see a final score of 28-27 Bengals.
I like that. It's going to be a close game. I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with you here, Chet. I like the San Francisco 49ers coming off a loss last week against the Seattle Seahawks game that they probably should have won for the majority of it. But their offense was clicking for a lot of it. George Kittle's back and healthy. Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, last week, really unraveling the last quarter of play after throwing it all the way back. Didn't look good for 3 out of the 4 quarters in that game. So I like the Niners. I love their run game. The run game's elite. It keeps them in games. They can run on anyone's throat. And it's really a must-win for them, too, going in a hostile environment in Cincinnati.
Especially in an NFC picture that's very wide open.
Yeah, they're 6-6 right now. So, and sitting at the, I believe, 7th seed in the NFC. So this really is a must-win game for them. I think Shanahan's have a good game plan. And I'm down to throw a unit on this with you, buddy. I'll put $10 on this with you right now.
$10.
This will be our bet of the week.
All right, bet of the week: Bengals, Niners.
I believe in Shanahan. See, when it comes to close games like this, I think about coaches: Shanahan or Zach Taylor. And I'll take Kyle Shanahan any day of the week. On the road.
Right now, it's the Niners sitting at the 7th seed. The Vikings have dropped down to the 9th seed after that
Eagles
loss.
At number 8 at 6-7. They're right on the cusp too.
Yeah.
The Niners, they're a better team than a lot of those other teams in the mix, at full strength. And I think this is one of those games they got to prove it against another good team from a different conference.
All right, Duffy. So now let us hear your upset of the week.
This is a really random upset. I could have picked a whole lot of other games on this list, but random upset. I'm going to pick my boy right here, Matt Ryan, going to bounce back up this weekend in Charlotte, go on the road against Carolina Panthers and get a victory. The Matt Ryan, Cam Newton rivalry is going to be back alive if he's playing on Sunday. And the Panthers just looking at a sink these last few weeks, been looking terrible. With Cam Newton playing horrendously against the Miami Dolphins last week, lost to the Washington football team the week before that, had a bye week this past Sunday to try to, rest up and stuff. But the Atlanta Falcons, for 3 quarters on Sunday against the Bucs, they looked contentious. They looked they were in it for a lot of the game. I think against the Panthers on Sunday, a team that's really shaky. Both these teams 5-7, both really still in the thick of the NFC playoff picture. And this Panthers team that already beat the Falcons earlier in the year, and I don't think they're going to beat them twice. I got the Falcons evening up the season series, winning this game 23-16 in Charlotte on Sunday. Currently +3 right now, +115 money line. Give me that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take that too. I like the Atlanta Falcons in this one because, like you said, when you look at their schedule this season, they've had some pretty tight games against some pretty good teams. I mean, a tight win over the Saints. The Saints obviously missing Jameis Winston, but they did get a good win over them in that one. And then I mean, they did
And
play
Miami
competitive.
too, you know.
Miami, they
Good
beat.
games.
The Jets, they beat. Giants, they beat. They were close in that Washington game early in the season. That score was final 34-30. That was a good game right
It's gonna
there.
be one of those games that really matters in
And even
January.
against the Panthers last time, they lost that game 19-13. They still had a chance, but you're looking at a Falcons team here that's 4-2 on the road, going up against the Panthers team that's sitting at 2-4 at home. I like the Falcons'
That's
chances because this
crazy.
year,
They have one win at home this year.
yeah, that's
It wasn't even in. It wasn't even in Atlanta. It was in London, bro.
yeah.
When they were the home team. So at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they are
They still
0.
haven't won a game.
That's
So
crazy, dude.
Atlanta, for me, they've been a pesky team this season for certain teams, and although they're sitting at 5-7, they could be a lot better than they already are. I think we're going to see them click in the next few seasons potentially. We might see them start to become a threat once again in this league, but it's not going to start yet. But it's going to have a flash of it, and I think we'll see them beat the Carolina Panthers in Carolina.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him, dude. And I'm doing it for your brother, Matt Heath.
Yeah, I got to root for Matt Heath in this one.
I'm wearing the red for him too. Go Birds.
All right, so that's a wrap from tonight's episode of Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy. Thank you all for tuning in, and for those of you who didn't hear it, just go to this part of the episode here. If you want your pick for locks and upsets, just like how me and Duffy do it, send it in to us, and who knows, maybe you'll be on next week's show. Just let us know. Drop your name in the comments with your lock and pick for this week or next week. And if it pans out right, if you get them both right, hey, we'll shoot you an invite to the show one of these days, and you'll come on and talk some football with us. Absolutely. So let us know, and you get to talk. Basically, best way I could put it. Thank you all for tuning in to tonight's episode of Unapologetic with Chet and Duffy. Enjoy the rest of your week. And go Pats, of course. Riding high, 7 straight wins. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. Let's get it, baby.
We'll see you all next week. Thank you again.
God bless.